Hey YouTube, it's the Backyard Pioneer coming to you today with a benchtop review of the Kershaw CQC-8K. It's one of the collaborations with Emerson. As you can probably tell by the wave feature in the thumb disc, this one just screams Emerson. Let's get the stats out of the way first. This blade length on this is 3.5 inches with a blade thickness. I had to get the micrometer for this one. I came up with 0.12, which is just shy of 1/8 of an inch. Closed length, 4.6 inches. Open, right at 8, and a little bit portly at 5.4 ounces. But like I said, this is a budget knife, so they're not really looking to save weight, especially they're looking to get the Emerson design cues out on this one. So let's talk about the ergos. That's what really kept this one in my pocket. It's kind of an interesting story. Very good. Comfortable in all grips. I especially like that little bit of jimping up here on the top of the blade. It's kind of hard to see. I think it's a pretty unique feature of this knife. Your thumb just goes out on it and it just locks right in. The ergonomics on this knife are surprisingly good. Might be a bit goofy, but it's comfortable to hold in all grips. So you can kind of see like a stabbing grip there. That's actually what kept this knife around, because I got this knife right in December 2014 when my second son was born. Any of you guys are parents, you kind of know, especially when you have a 4-year-old running around already, you bring a second child in, and well, mayhem ensues. So I was just too damn tired to make it down to the safe and trade it out for something else, because when I first got this knife, I really didn't care for it. But a funny thing happened with the extended stay in my pocket. The ergonomics really grew on me. I just, day after day, I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. That's kind of neat. And it overcame a lot of the shortcomings, a myriad of shortcomings that I kind of have with this knife. That's not really true. It's really just one big shortcoming, but it's such a slamming one. It's amazing that I still hold on to this knife. Talk about the jimping. It's adequate. It's okay. Like I said, adequate. I really like it, but it's just merely adequate. The handle is definitely the key here, because the G10 is actually kind of slick. As you can see, it's got some of these milling in the G10. I would say they're really just styling cues. They really don't really do anything for traction. With this, it's all about that handle shape and just how well it's glued to your hand. You saw it opens pretty nicely. Good flick and it pops open. I really like the thumb disc. This was one of my first blades that had a thumb disc, and I'm enjoying it. Talking about the blade, it's like a trip back to the 80s. You can see it's definitely got that Tanto design, all angular and sharp and stabby, which is cool. I got a couple knives like this. It really takes me back to some of those cold steels from the mid 80s, especially if you grew up in that era. Mall Ninja-esque, I guess you could say. But when you flip it over, I really hate the chisel grind. It's just flat, and with this coating, it really just does nothing to grab you with this knife. It's a big turnoff for me. But the blade is it's a Chinese-made blade, so it's coming with their steel, the 8CR13 MOV, which I've never had a problem with. I always put up there with, like, say, like an AUS 8 or even a decent 448 with a good heat treat, something like that. Not pot metal, it takes a decent edge and it'll get a day's work in. So when it comes to that, I'm a symmetry guy, because there's a couple of Tantos in the cold steel catalog I've been looking at, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. But when you flip it over and it's that single chisel grind, just not for me. So, and I will mention about the blade. Oxide, it's not a fancy covering. It's not, a DLC or the BK1 that you're going to get on a Benchmade. But it's getting the job done. It's just merely there to keep it from rusting. But hey, that's an important job too. Well, it's getting a little beat up, and I'm not really digging the glossy. I kind of think I would have liked it in a matte black finish or something like that. Talking about the lock, it's a liner lock, as you can see. And what I'm going to tell you here is I hate this one. There's just not enough of the lock hanging down where the choil is for you to make it operating it easily. Before you say, oh, you're just being a lock snob and hating on liner locks, roll in. This is the Ontario, the Rat. This is the original one. There's also a liner lock, but it's just got plenty of material there, and the spring isn't overly stiff. So I'm not sure if this is just a poor design or poorly executed, because it's overly stiff and it just doesn't seem to be enough material for your thumb to grab onto for the lock to work properly. I'm carrying this knife, the CQC-8K. It's a bit heavy and clunky. You're also not getting the greatest in speed there. At first I wasn't too hip on it, but it was definitely the ergonomics that kept me coming back to this blade. So it kind of earned a soft spot in my heart. I love the wave feature. If you've never had a knife with a wave feature, I would go out and get one. I'm going to roll a knife in later that I think is a better example without spending Emerson dollars to get Emerson wave features. Really digging the thumb disc. You can only carry this tip up because of the wave feature. It has to be tip up, so that catches on your pocket and does that really fast deployment that Emersons are known for. But you do get left or right side carry with it. You can see we've got a set of holes over there if you want to move the pocket clip. Speaking of the pocket clip, it's definitely got those Emerson design cues. I love the skull. It's just badass. I think you got another one up on the blade there. As you can see, it's just definitely screams Emerson, and that's just such a cool little motif right on there. We talk about this blade, what for? Definitely for self-defense with that wave feature, and the tanto. You know, it's supposedly to give you that stabbing power, keeps you the tip in line with the pivot, and, you know, superior stabbing power, I guess, penetration. And the single bevel is supposed to be sharper. I'm not buying it. I mean, you know, and no, Ernie Emerson wouldn't be using them if he didn't think they were something, but they're just not for me. I was able to keep the knife sharp enough, even in the field, just using a simple drawer sharpener if I got dull during the day. And it was adequate for at work. You know, I'm asking it to cut zip ties, cut tape, cardboard, open envelopes, stuff like that. Some of the real tough cutting tasks I had to ask of it is cutting wet sandy rope or wet sandy. We have a nylon pull tape that we use in the manholes. That stuff gets wet, it runs through the ground. It can play hell on blades. So that's where I really thought the steel, you know, got the job done. It's not S30V, it's not M4, but it's not even VG10. But it'll get through the day. It did need a decent amount of touching up. So I'm going to say it was what for. It's only an okay work knife. Definitely more self-defense oriented. So I'm going to roll in a couple of peers. I'll just save the best one for last. Here we have another. This is the Kershaw CQC-8K XL. Oh, shit, I almost cut myself there. This knife, I like the blade shape a little better. So I'm going to throw that in there. It suffers from some of the same deficiencies that this one does, but I think it looks a little cooler. I like how they kind of got that stone finish there and then the satin. This one is a frame lock. This one, it's just as tight. I've played with the pivot or anything like that, but this one actually deploys a little faster and smoother, but it's definitely still just tight. If you dig in the pocket opening, here's one that I think might surprise you. That's the cold steel tie light. This one's definitely purpose-built for stabbing. I mean, it gives you that style and cues of a 1950s era stiletto. And, you know, that's really what it's for. I carry this one at work for goofs every now and again, and it gets through the day, but it just becomes a hassle. That's what I'm going to say about that. But I do like this knife. Kind of reminds me of that line from Pulp Fiction about pigs and dogs, and, you know, personality goes a long way. Personality goes a long way. So this one's kept this one in my collection. Also a liner lock. Also not done too well. Better than Kershaw, but definitely not my favorite. My favorite of the sort of wave-esque features of knives that I have that are my favorite is definitely the Spyderco Endura with the wave feature. And this one has Ernie Emerson's patent number right on it. So, you know, you can guilt-free. Spyderco didn't steal this design from anyone. They went right to Ernie and said, hey, we want to work with you. And this is what you got. You get in VG10 steel. You know, you get in the fiberglass reinforced nylon handle instead of the G10, but I think this one's just it works better with their bi-directional grip, very grippy in your hand. It's simple lock back, but you're not asking too much of this knife. I think this makes a better everyday folder, everyday carry knife. To fit the Emerson in, they do have to change the shape slightly of the blade, so you are getting a little bit of a less work-friendly knife and definitely more of a McStabby knife. But that's, you know, a compromise is going to be made if you're going to look for the wave feature. People might say, well, Mike, this knife costs twice as much as this knife. Are you getting twice as much knife? I'm going to say yes. This is something you're going to have long term. The VG10 steel really stands out. And this one, I think its Chinese manufacturing does shine through a little bit. You know, but in that $30 to $40 price range, it's a great knife. But I'm not knocking it. I have plenty of Chinese-made knives that I really like. This one, it's more of the design features. So I shouldn't really just point it out that it's Chinese-made, but it is Chinese-made. I think they that lock, they just really need to look at that, and I would enjoy this line of knives a lot more. So let's recap. Good but not great materials. The 8CR13 MOV, good steel, gets through the day. G10's a bit slick. Chisel grind, just meh for me. Really hate the lock. Love the wave feature and the thumb disc. It's funky looking, but the ergos are top notch. You can pick these up on Amazon from anywhere from $29 to $35, depending on what day of the week it is, prime deals, stuff like that. So might be something to look at. They are available sometimes on the secondary market if you're scouting out blade forms, something like that. A lot of these knives you're not going to get by themselves if it's aftermarket. People are going to be looking to go into packages, which I never shy away from. I've gotten some pretty cool knives from that stuff I probably wouldn't have bought new. So there you have it. That's the Kershaw Emerson CQC-8K. That's my review of it. If you want, I'd love to. If you want, please let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from people. All right, take care.